Welcome, Tyler.
Yes,
Welcome back.
Joseph O'Neill. We're back at Milliron Studios.
Yes, we are. Fourth time
Yeah,
we've done
something
this.
like.
Yeah,
And I was just thinking today that you are now entering your second decade of exhibiting your work.
yeah.
That's
Wow,
pretty cool.
I
So,
never even thought of it that way. That's funny.
what keeps you excited about exhibiting your work?
Um, well, let's talk about just exciting about photography in itself.
Mm,
But I've moved more into digital. I moved more into editing software and using that a lot. So most of my photographs are turning into art, what I consider art. It's really me manipulating more than anything else, and not a storytelling form. That keeps me excited, and it's also the movement into color has revitalized, I think, my sense of what photography is and what it is not anymore. It's exciting. I mean, yeah, in 2013 was the first year I really started showing my work, so that's been a fun journey.
yeah.
It started off well. I lucked out in that I was able to get instant recognition immediately. When I applied to things, I'm getting accepted into print and everything else. So that kept me motivated. It kept me going on that side. So that was interesting. And then once you start doing it over and over again, you start becoming choosier about what you apply to and move on to. Um, it's it's really when got into Pleiades Gallery, where and Phoenix Gallery, which was my first gallery that I was with, that I really blossomed into more of a curator of my own work. It allows me to now not have somebody else curate my shows. I get to be the curator. And so that's changed also. My style has changed a lot too. I started off more as a street photographer and slowly moved into fine art and then abstract and news. So it's a gentle progression along the way. Just to keep myself interested in the art.
If you were to put your very first exhibition and the exhibition that you're about to debut next to each other, side by side, what would the work tell each other?
Nothing. They are so totally different.
Yeah.
It was that street photography. I walked around the city with my camera and just took pictures. There was no color involved.
Hmm.
That would be the first thing you notice immediately. And it was more film noir. I was taking a lot of nighttime photographs at that time period because during the summer in New York you didn't want to be out on the street during the day. So I became more of a nighttime photographer. And that was a different world too. And it's more at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're on the Brooklyn Bridge by yourself, you feel very like
Hmm.
you got to be careful of what's going on around me, and so it's more film noir style. The daytime photographs were more. So that's when I started really moving into more of the abstract and more of the art form of the black and white at that point. And also, I was more into pre-editing the settings on my camera now I'm just very neutral where I start with, and then I do more photo editing on the backside in the studio where I work on my laptop. So that's would have changed a lot about it. I'm not as physically active anymore. I'm getting older, so it's kind of hard to just keep moving around and doing that thing. Um, but that's about it with that side.
For anyone who is not so fortunate as to have seen your work before, where you are right now, could you give a snapshot of your art and your photography?
It's about looking at patterns and lines and shapes of things. It can be big. It can be small. It's just me focusing in on the line. The line is the first thing I look at. It's what the shape is of it, and then I start looking for the color in it right now because I'm doing predominantly color. But it is that it's like these photographs up on that are being posted behind us. It's about shape. It's about in this series, it was about reflection. You see myself in that photograph in the middle, that kind of thing. But it's about the joining of light, shape, color, and and hues and that kind of thing. That's where it is right now for me.
I know that you mention the word minimalism comes up a lot in how you describe your work, including in the description of this show. What does minimalism mean to you, and how does it show up in your work?
I was a chef. That's what I started out as. That was my art form, and I'm a true believer in less is more. And that's taken over into my photography a lot too, where I don't want when you look at art that is so, especially religious art, where it's so convoluted. There's so much going on. There's little men and cherubs in the middle of the picture or down on the bottom. I find that distracting. You don't really look at what the artist really wanted you to look at, which is what minimalism is about.
How about how does story factor in when with regard to how you want your viewer to respond to your work?
I was explaining to somebody the other day because he telling me how he loves my portraits and my nudes, and I go, well, that's really not my favorite area, but I'll do it, and I think I do it well. And he goes and he said, well, I don't. And I said, I love the abstract, and he goes, well, I don't really get abstract art, and I go, it isn't about the storytelling. It's about the aesthetic of the photograph that you're looking at. You're not looking for a story. You're looking for what the artist wanted you to look at, and that's the lines. In my case, the lines and shapes.
This exhibition is breaking some new ground because a lot of times you exhibit in either black and white, and you have also done a color exhibition before. This exhibition is called Black and White and Color.
Right.
You're mixing some of the forms. Are there new challenges as you've chosen work now pairing black and white photographs with color?
What has changed with me in this form is that I used to shoot predominantly all in black and white, or then if I wanted something in color, I shot in color. Now I'm shooting in color and then post editing into black and white a lot of times. When you curate a show, you always look for similarities in the photographs that you're exhibiting. You want, you curate it in such a way that you want the stories, you want the pictures to tell their own stories. In this case, groups of photographs. And in my case, so when you move, we're going this, like you said, it was my first time doing the black and white and in color. It was a challenge curating it. It was like, how do I set up the gallery? How do I set up what I want you to see in what order I want you to see them in? So initially, I thought I'd just divide the room in half and do half color and half black and white. Then I realized I didn't have enough black and white to cover a complete room, so I started mixing in. And once I started mixing in the color with the black and white, it's, I think, a better story. It's a better visual story that you're seeing when you see the show at the gallery.
Do you have a couple favorite photographs that are going to be in this?
Of course,
Yeah.
every photographer does. I started off with over probably about 2,000 photographs to edit down to, and I ended up with around 60 to 70 photographs. That process is a hard process. It's you being critical about your work, and you have to be. It's not what's right with this photograph, what's wrong with this photograph. So you start looking at what, that line doesn't belong there, and now so therefore it doesn't, where it's not worthy enough to make it into the next round of editing. I forgot what your question was.
Do you have a favorite photograph?
Oh, of course. Always. You always do, and usually they'll be centered prominently in the exhibition, in either right in the middle of the room, or in this case, right in the middle of the series. The one dab in the middle is one of my favorites, and of course, we all do. You cannot. Even Suzanne has her favorites and dislikes too, and everyone will look at my photographs and pick their own that they like.
Are you your harshest critic?
Of course. You have to be. Every artist has to be critical of their own work. It's a humbling experience when you look at a photograph that you thought 6 months ago was the greatest thing you ever shot, and you look at it now and you go, "Ooh, what was I thinking?" You start doing that kind of thing. It's not self-doubt. It's just you become very excited when you photograph something and you get it into the editing progress and you finally finish it and you look at it and you go, "Wow." So there's an excitement that builds while you're in the process of creating this art. And then when you look at it 6 months ago, you go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe.
Does it ever happen in reverse where you have
Oh,
taken?
of course. One of the great things about when you go through the editing process for a show like this is that you find gems, ones that you thought were not worthy. And you go, ooh, let me give this a second look. And, but also probably at that time period when I was taking that photograph, there was something else that I was probably more excited about. So I just overlooked that one. I didn't really want to use it at that point because I didn't think it was worthy. Now, you go back and you say, okay, this is a good photograph.
What do you want people to know about this show in particular, as it relates to your work as it is now?
I don't. I never even thought about it this way. Um, it's it's a progression. I think all artists need to change and move, and you'll notice that I'm becoming more of a not a storyteller. I really moved away from that and moved into that. Let's look at the aesthetic of this photograph, and especially with color, because color is blinding sometimes to what's really going on in the photograph. You become distracted with it. So with this one, I want you to look at just look at what I intended it to be. There's a series of 20 of 5 by 5, 25 photographs that I joined together to form a block, basically. And when you look at them individually, you go, "What the fuck is he thinking?" But when you see what I intended them to be and see them as a group, an overall group, I don't want you to just pay attention to the one photograph. I want you to look at all of them and then realize this is wow, this is what he's intended. This is what he meant this to be.
You've taken many photographs focused on New York City, and you've also taken many photographs that you've featured from travels around the world. What does this show contain?
So there's not much of my international flavor with the show. There is a couple from Miami, a lot from Croatia where I was this summer to yeah last summer, and then New York basically. It is still this is a New York story to it.
Will viewers sort of get that feel of New York City, of urban?
I think you do just because it's in New York you get very muted colors. It's not it's if you go down to New Orleans, it is color everywhere. In New York, you don't get that. You get blacks, you get grays, you get sand, you get masonry or earthy tones more. So looking around in New York, it was hard to find color, and you really had to pay attention to what you were looking for to find it. It is very orange predominant in this show. I guess I like orange. Who knew? Now, and blues, orange and blues a lot in my color. The black and whites are going to be more geared towards high contrast, and it can be minimalist. I mean, black, white, and a little bit of gray tones in there every so often. But that's what I intended for this show.
Let's talk a little bit about the process. Um, are you are you more excited or equally excited about the part of your process of taking the photograph or the part of editing the photograph?
Every photographer knows that when they take a photograph, whether or not it's a good photograph, you know instantly. You know you got it. It's when you go into the editing process where you didn't think that photograph was it that you find it and it becomes a gem. That's interesting for me, and that's exciting. But also, it's I can't wait to get back home and get into the photograph itself. I'm going to spend more time now with that photograph. Instead of that 3 seconds, 4 seconds it takes for me to take that photograph, I'm now spending 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes with it, which I guess is more akin to like what an oil painter goes through, where you're living with it constantly. You're working on it, working on it. My work period is about a 10-minute period, and then I either know if it's good or if it's not. And if I don't think it's working the way I want it to, then I just say, okay, let me find something else.
I mean, with working in digital photography, you on one shoot can probably take thousands of pictures. How do you even approach coming back and narrowing that down into what you want to work with?
Well, so initially, when I go out, I don't have anything specific in mind that I'm looking to photograph. I'm looking around to see what I want to photograph, and when I find it, I take 2 or 3 pictures of that same thing. Click, 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 click. And then when I go into the editing process, that's when it becomes the fun part for me. I'm looking at things that, for some reason, my eye has been trained so well to look at shapes and look at, especially in black and white, you start looking at hues of grays and the shading and that kind of thing. And then you really start looking around and fixing it. Going through the editing process it can be daunting at times, but I think through learning how to become a better photographer, I've now become very choosy about what I shoot. So I'm not going people with their cameras a lot of time click, 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 click on everything they see. I've gotten away from that. I'm now where I would take 1,000 photographs 4 or 5 years ago every time I went out. I'm now down to about 100 to 200. So I've now narrowed that down immediately. Then when you go in, and because I'm taking 3 or 4 shots of each subject, I have to choose one of the four. I've now narrowed it down again, and then you work from there and stuff like that.
What are the dates of this show? Where can people come to see it?
The show opens up on May 16th and it runs until June 10th at Pleedy Gallery. The reception is on May 18th, which is a Thursday from 5 to 8 p.m. It's I think it's an exciting show. I mean, I think I say this about every show I've done, exhibition I've done, that I think this is my best. I'm that weird now with this one. I think this is my best. I think it's my best curated show, and in the way I place the photographs together and what I have together and how I want you to look at it. And a lot of it is color based, where I just put all my blues together, put all the oranges together, and that kind of stuff. But then when you get into the black and white, you'll see the subtleties of what I do in my work.
If you were the first person walking into that gallery and never seen work from Joseph O'Neill, what do you think that person is going to feel or respond to?
Because I'm biased, I don't know how people are going to respond. What I find is photography is an odd art form. It is, if you're into it, you'll understand what I'm doing. If you love photography, you'll get it. You'll understand it. If you're into oil paintings, you'll look at my work and walk away. You know what I mean? That's what I find with most people that come to see my shows. They get it. They're there either for the alcohol, yeah, that kind of thing, and they'll peruse it just to be polite. But you'll never get a response from them. And then there are people that will actually come up and want to talk to me about what I've done and how am I doing this and what am I looking at, and that kind. And you get people that are interested in that side. So you run the gamut of everything, from people who really don't care to people who are passionate about it.
Do you see other photographers that are similarly doing this type of editing, using software to bring forward color in the way that you are?
Yes and no. I think photography is still stuck in that the idea that it has to be every photograph has to tell a story. So you still have people that are going down that road. Then there are people that are more what I consider more conceptual photography than I do anything else at this point. It's not street photography. It's not anything else. It is taken on the streets of New York. So don't get me wrong, or wherever I am at that point. But it is more conceptual in its idea and its approach. And like I say in my statement, the editing software that we have out there now allows me as an artist to have a different a different paintbrush, a different way of looking at art and looking at what photography can be instead of what it has been for over 150 years. I like the idea of being new to this field because we are the first generation of digital photographers. Especially me, when I was the first camera I had was a Canon Sure Shot, and it 56 megabytes. Now 56 megabytes is nothing for me. That's like 1/3 of one photograph. But it has changed the way I look at it and the way I take photography. We were all taught that, family photos or, oh, look at how funny Al Gorney is or whatever. I moved away from that and gotten into more of the abstract and more of the conceptual side of it.
Well, a lot to be excited about, and the show is just about a week away.
It's as of today, it's 2 weeks away.
2 weeks.
14 days, people. You better be there.
So all right, if you have one elevator ride, you want to tell a stranger about this show, what are you going to say?
Look beyond your preconceived notions of what photography is and what it has been, and open your mind to what it can be. That's what I would say.
And the dates one more time. And
opens up on May 16th and runs till June 10th at Pleedy Gallery. Reception is on May 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. Tyler, always a pleasure.
Hey, we'll hope to see everyone there.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Cool. Nicely done.